So, 6 ways to make your website better. And there's only 6. Just kidding. There's way more. But these are the 6 that I figured out. We're going to start with SEO instead of the other thing. So SEO stands for is search engine optimization. And that is just that's making your website optimized so that when somebody types in something in the search bar, they can find yours better. So what I'm starting with here is a screenshot, a couple of screenshots of how we do on-page SEO, how I do it in my website. So what you see here is a blog. Let me see if I can't find my cursor. Okay, wait. Is a blog from my website. And if you'll notice over on there's the blog, the words in the middle here, and then over off to the right, there's this little sidebar over there. And in the sidebar over there, you see an image. One of the biggest things in SEO and when you add a blog to your page is this image is a pretty big deal. You need to name the picture the right name, because if I download this was a stock image, if I downloaded it, it might say to-men-shaking-hands- iStock 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, and that would be the name of the picture. You download that and put it on your website, and you don't change the name of the picture, you've missed an opportunity for some keyword stuff. Okay, so the next page is a little more in detail. I've done some screenshots of it. On the right hand side of the page over here where it says alt text, you guys see that? Alt text, title, caption, description, copy link, you see that stuff? You can see get big jobs is what I decided to use for my focus keyword, and that is the keyword that I want this blog to focus on is called the focus keyword. So I've decided that I want get big jobs to be the focus keyword. So I've named my picture up at the top. You see it get-big-jobs.jpg. And then my alt text is get big jobs. I've got a title, men handshaking, caption, 2 successful men congratulating each other, and then description, business shaking hand. This part right here, I'm going to talk a little bit about accessibility toward the end of this. And this is going to be one of the things that you can do. Americans with Disabilities Act is really starting to kind of put pressure on web developers, because a long time ago when they developed the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, websites weren't a thing, but now they are. So I'll get to that later, but this on the right, putting a picture in there and making sure you've got all this stuff filled out is important for your SEO, and it is important for your ADA compliance, just so you know. And then on the left over here, there is a slug, and there is a there's a meta description down at the bottom. You might hear me say meta description a lot during this, and you might hear me say alt text a lot. And so those are some words I'm going to use. Just wanted you to know what they are. The meta description is just a little snippet of what the article is about. And in the meta description, you want that focus keyword that you want to try to rank for, get big jobs, in your meta description. So just building this one blog is kind of a long process. Anyway, and then there's one more example. On the left there is an example of my focus keyword. And then on the right, I'm using a WordPress site. And so when I write that article and drop it in there, there's a plugin that I use called Yoast SEO, and Yoast will give you all the things that you need to do. This is a checklist basically for SEO. So this just happens to be and the idea is to get this little green smiley face up there at the top. You don't have to have every single thing checked off to get that green green light from Yoast, but this just basically says, okay, you've done a good job with your SEO. And so as you can see this, outbound links, internal links. An outbound link is just when you're linking to somebody else's site. An inbound link, an internal link is one that is, if I'm writing a blog about marketing, about social media strategy as a part of a marketing strategy, then I can link back to my article that I've written about marketing strategy, so that if they want to learn more about marketing, so I can just give them a little trail of marketing goodness through my blog. And that's why you want to spend some time structuring your blog and not just throwing articles at each blog every month. There's a bunch of stuff about key phrases in here. Again, meta description length, all of those things, alt image attributes, text length, all that stuff. Yoast will tell you, if you're using a WordPress site, Yoast will tell you that you've done a good job. And so there. If you're not using a WordPress site, there's Wix has this. Some of the site builders like Wix and Squarespace also have these things in there. Yoast just happens to be like the Mac Daddy big dog for WordPress, and WordPress has about 50% of the market share for site builders, and so Yoast is really and they're smart. And anyway, so that's sort of my introduction to SEO ish. So on the show, you have some of the most important SEO ranking factors, we think, because Google, again, doesn't tell us everything that we need to know. But the first thing is a secure and accessible website. Secure, if you go into the menu bar or your browser bar, sometimes you see HTTP. You've seen these little things that have parentheses that say not secure. But the ones that are secure say HTTPS. And the security is simply, SSL stands for secure socket layer. That doesn't really matter to us. It's just how they encrypt the data that's being sent over. It used to be relevant only for people that had e-commerce on their sites, but now Google is really sort of cracking down on this security thing for everybody across the board. And it protects you also from getting hacked. So SSL is great. And then accessibility. And I think this word accessibility, these are not in any particular order, by the way. That's not the number one thing. That's just a thing. Accessibility just means it needs to be easy to look through and accessible, easy to get through. The second thing, page speed, the rate at which your page loads is a function of how much stuff is on your website, how your photographs, how big the pictures and the images are optimized. If you don't have your photographs optimized and you have really big pictures, it'll take them longer to load. Video, that sort of stuff. And then you've got site speed too. There's a site speed and a page speed, and it's not just your pictures. It can be your hosting server like GoDaddy or whoever hosts your website. If you're hosting, it's called DNS, and it has an effect on your site speed too. And any of this stuff, if you want to ask questions later on, you can. But I'm just going to kind of go through this. Mobile friendliness, we're going to talk about that a little bit more in detail later. And then the domain age, your URL, and your authority. So how old is your domain? 60% of the sites that have top 10 Google search rankings are 3 years old or more. It takes a little bit of time to get ranked on Google if you've got a brand new site. So when it comes to search engine ranking factors, authority matters. So I'm skipping to that last one, but authority is based on link backs. And this is why it's so important, like CABA, because we're CABA members and we have our information on the CABA directory in there. We have the URL for our website. I've got an UpHill Marketing Group link on the CABA site, and that is called a link back. And because CABA's site has a lot of authority, that gives my site more authority. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. And your URL, my my business is called UpHill Marketing Group. I've got the word marketing in there, marketing group. It makes sense. I didn't decide to call it, I don't know, flowerchild.com, and it's a marketing company, and they don't have anything in common. So if you can name your business, your URL something similar to what your business does, it helps. That's the domain age, the URL, and the authority. Optimized content, that's what I just sort of went through just a little bit ago with those blogs, and making sure you've got keywords and meta descriptions and alt tags and all that stuff. Technical SEO, let's see, technical SEO is optimizing your website for crawling and indexing. It's not what I just showed you. That's on-page SEO. The technical SEO is stuff like 301 redirects or 404 redirects. If you go, have you been somewhere that says, sorry, page not available? That's a technical SEO issue. And then there's robots and sitemaps and things like that are also part of technical SEO. Technical SEO is something that I have partners that help me do the technical SEO, and that's all I have to say about that. We're going to talk about user experience, number 7. That is probably one of the things that I hear over and over and over again, and it's why it's one of my 6 things that you have to have, really, is because if somebody goes to your website and they have a good experience, they're going to stay there. And that's one of the things that Google looks at, is how long are people staying on your site. So you have things like bounce rates. If you have Google Analytics installed on your website, you can go look at that and see how many people came to my site, how long did they stay, how many bounces, what's the bounce rate. Bounce rate means somebody comes to your site and they don't go any further than the homepage. They go away. They don't start looking around. So we're going to go through user experience in a little more detail too. Your links, which is part of your domain authority. Social signals, which is people sharing your information on their social and you sharing your information on social. It's not a big ranking factor, but it does play a part. And then having real business information, having original content on there that is relevant and valid and useful and that people come back to is very important. You need to make sure that the content on your site is original, because you will get penalized if you've got duplicate content. So if you go and just find something, if you copy and paste a blog that you found somewhere else, you're going to get pinged for that. All right, moving on. Your brain scrambled yet? Anybody? Yeah, I know. All right, also about SEO, one more quick thing. Two kinds of SEO, on-page and off-page. So on-page SEO refers to factors on your own website that you can optimize, just like the stuff I just showed you. And then off-page is the actions taken outside your site, like the links and the social stuff. So those are 2 different kinds to be more specific about SEO. All right, now we're going to get into the user experience. The user experience, and they abbreviate that like that, UX. The goal of a good user experience is to help users do what they want to do when they're interacting with your business. So if I go to your site and you're selling a widget and I want to buy a widget, then I need to be able to locate the widget, pick out the widget, and buy the widget quickly and easily. If it's a service and I need more information, or I want a quote, or I want to talk to you, I need to be able to go to your site, read a little bit about what I'm looking for, and then request whatever kind of information I need from you. And when you're planning your website, or when you're planning to redo your website, and even after you've redone it, you can still test it, but keeping this user experience in mind helps you build the kind of site you want to build. So you need to, first of all, you need to think like your potential customers. So put yourself in their shoes and say, okay, when I go to this particular website, what, not what do you want them to do, but what do they want to do? So you really have to kind of separate yourself from your customer and take out your vanity and take out your ego and put in really who that customer is and think like them. So if they want to, like, just like you need to be able to go to the site and land on the home page, click on a product category, click on the product page, and then check out. And whatever action you want them to take, it needs to be 5 steps or less for a good user experience. So again, services, then they want to go to the home page, they want to maybe go to the About Us page, find out more, and then they want to go to a contact form to request some more information from you. And then the second step is you need to map out what feelings or emotions you want those customers to have when they complete an action. So when people land on your home page, you might want them to feel welcomed or excited or curious. Or if you're a spa, then you might want them to feel relaxed and calm or something like that. So figure out when you're mapping your site how you want people to feel. And then the next step is to start sketching that out. What does that look like? What are the photographs that I'm going to pick? What are the words that I'm going to use? How am I going to map this out so that I flow with that energy that I want to pull through my whole website? And the next thing you do is test. So if you've got a prototype or if you've got an idea on a whiteboard, on a sketch pad, anything like that, take it to your friends, take it to your coworkers or your colleagues, and have them go through it and see what they think and get feedback from them early. All right, the next thing, Sharon, on time, does it matter besides that I don't go past 1 or?
Well, you can go to like 12:45, 12:50. You know, we usually take a few minutes for questions at the end.
No, I know. I'm just trying to, I'm looking at that. I don't want to.
Time.
Yeah, I don't want to rush through it, but I don't want to skip anything too. I'm sure anyway. All right, mobile friendly. So it's not just having a responsive website. A responsive website is, you guys have seen these sites where you try to look at them on your phone and it's like the whole site, but it's little tiny on your phone and you got to pull it up and make it big. That's a responsive website, but mobile friendly site is a little bit different. And here are reasons that you want a mobile friendly site. You know, people are always on their phones nowadays. Google favors them. If your competition site isn't mobile friendly, and yours is, that might be helpful. All of these kinds of things. So you can go to Google and you can have your site looked at on Google. So I did that. I tested my URL and it says the page is mobile friendly. But if you see there underneath the word test results, it says page loading issues. So I went on and dug a little deeper and I found that there are 15 pages, 15 resources couldn't be loaded. So on my mobile site, there's some pages that only get partially loaded. And when you go test it like that, then I can, if I didn't screenshot the rest of it, but I can open that up, the 15 resources that couldn't be loaded, and see which one of them, see specifically what they are, and then go have them fixed. That way, when somebody tries to open a particular page on your site and the picture's not there, it might be, or the image might be annoying. And that's one thing you don't want to do, is to annoy your customers or your potential customers. The next thing we want our sites to be is easy to navigate. And when I say navigate, I'm talking about the menu bar. The menus up top and the sidebars on your website. So site navigation is helpful for people to find information quickly. It keeps people from being frustrated, and it also helps the search engines index your information. Do your website navigation, in both how and where it appears on your site, the easier it is to use. It makes it easier for visitors. So, I mean, you want to make your categories clear so that it's obvious. You know, if you've got about us and products, you don't want to put something about your products in your about us page, or you don't want to put something about, you know, if you have a, I don't know, if you've got a services page, you don't want to put the wrong things together. Make sure everything is grouped together. Make sure everything is clickable, and make sure everything is accurate. So I'm going to show you an example from my website. I've got a lot of menu tabs across the top. Many of them are drop down. I just happen to drop down the services part, and then when you click on one of those and it opens it up, you've got the navigation bar here on the left that that keeps people engaged. If they happen to be looking for services and they want to look through all of them, then they're right there in front of them. So that's an easy to use navigation thing. The next thing is to have a clear message. Messaging is tough. It's not just you put on your website, but it's part of who you are. It's part of your brand. So you need to be able to verbalize, I guess, in text, what it is that makes your business different, what it is that makes your business unique, how you can help that maybe some other company might not. But as far as design is concerned on your website, it's a good idea, and I'm going to show you an example in just a minute, but it's a good idea to keep character counts to around 80 characters per line. Because if you get too broad with it, if it's too long, then you're going to lose people with really long lines of text. When keeping your visitors interested is a challenge, because you've got about 7 seconds to keep their attention. So with shorter lines, then it's a little interesting, because a one long line is more of a commitment for a reader than one short line. But you don't want to make them too short. You just got to, it's kind of like the Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And this is too long and this is too short, but this one was just right. So that's what you want to do with when you're writing your content out. And then you want to make sure that your home page uses enough white space. And white space is just, it doesn't have to be white. It can have a color in it, but it just needs to be designed so that there's not a bunch of clutter in there. Because if there's too much clutter and there's too many things on the page, your visitor will come and look at the page and not really even see anything, because there's too much to look at. So you got to pick the most important thing. It's kind of like a billboard, almost. You've got a few more seconds with your homepage than you do with the billboard, but you need to be able to convey a message on a billboard in about 3 seconds. What's the most important thing that you want people to take away, and how are you going to hook them into keeping on reading through your site? And white space helps them focus on that one thing that you want them to concentrate on. So font is also important. What I'm using here in this presentation is called a sans serif font. That means without feet. Serif font is, if you all know what Times New Roman looks like, the stuff that they use in newspaper print for the most part. In books and magazines are typically serif fonts, those things. But for web development, you kind of want to stay away from serif fonts and use the sans serif fonts. So like Arial, Helvetica, Calibri, those font families are good for web design. And when you're writing a letter to somebody, a 12-point font, the size 12 points is a pretty decent size font. But if you're on a website, it needs to be about 16. So make sure you're using a good font and that you're making it big enough for people to be able to see. Contrast is also a big deal, because if you've got a blue background and some gray text, might not be able to see it. I know that it seems sort of like a no-brainer to me, but I've seen some sites that have been designed and you want to go, well, how do you expect me to even read that? I can't see that. We talked about navigation. It's very easy to help pull people through your site if your navigation is good. And then if you've got a lot of content to put in there, consider lists, because they're easy. And again, like that first line, you've got a few seconds to keep people engaged. Lists are a good way to do that. Let's see, what else? Oh boy. This next one. That is an example of what not to do with your website. They've done just about everything wrong here. The character line, keep your character line to around 80 per line. No, they didn't do that. Their homepage does not have an abundance of white space. Their font, they're using all caps, probably Times New Roman. The contrast is not that great. There is no navigation. There's no menu bar up at the top. There's no way to get around on that one. And then it says my list can be useful to structure content, but in this case, I'm going to say it's not that useful. Well, anyway, and then here's an example of a decent site, or a nice looking site. The white space is blue. The white space is blue here, but emotional health, we know exactly what they're talking about. There's the menu bar, the navigation around the top, and then there's what you want them to see, a little bit more about it, and then there's a call to action right there. Get a demo. So that's a design that's much better for the user and the user experience than the last one that we saw. Those people, by the way, did redo their site and it looks a whole lot better. These guys aren't my clients, by the way. All right, we're going to talk about site speed and a little bit. Hang on just a second. Okay. These are a bunch of words that most people aren't going to know what are, and I'm not going to try to go through all of these things. And enabling compression just means that if you take that photograph that you have and you can compress it a little bit so it doesn't take up as much space on your website and it loads faster. So that's what that is. Compression is for your images. I'm not going to go through that second one. That's so technical. It's not even funny. Redirects are when you go to one page and it redirects you to another page. So those are okay if you have to use them, but if you don't have to use them, it's better to not to. Blah, blah, blah. We talked about optimizing images. This stuff, okay, let me see if I can put it this way. There's two kinds of ways that your website loads. One is the server that you use, and the other one is your actual site's speed, the page speed. So you can, it's like somebody's going to send you a piece of mail. Somebody's going to send you a piece of mail, AKA they're going to go to your website. So when they start to go to your website, it's like they're taking a piece of mail to the post office, and the post office is your DNS, is your server, and they're going to take it to your front door, your website. So you've got servers that have invested in bullet trains and can get that piece of information to your website really quickly, or you've got other sites that are on tricycles and they come to your site on a tricycle. So that's the DNS speed. That's a function of your hosting. You can't do anything about that except for get a different host for your site. And then the next kind of speed is how quickly the doors open at your house. Okay. So if the doors start to come open real slow, AKA I've got really large pictures on there and not optimized content, then maybe that person turns around before the doors get open on your website house. But if you get to the door and the website or the doors open really quickly to your house, then they're more liable to come in and stay a while. Does it make sense? Kind of? Okay. This is a site speed performance report that we can run for you, or you can go to g2metrics.com yourself and type in your very own URL and get your site speed report. And then what it does, this is again just a screenshot, it will give you your page speed score and all of these other technical things down there, and it will tell you where you're missing the mark. And that way you know, okay, well, we need to serve some scaled images on this site, and we need to leverage the browser caching on this site to make the page speed score go up. And there's more technical stuff to talk about, but again, if you want to dig into that, we can talk about that outside of this. What's next? Now we're going to get into accessibility. So I mentioned that the ADA was created a long time ago before websites existed, or existed like they do today. And what happened, and what is happening actually, is that when COVID, there was some muttering about ADA and websites, a while ago. But when COVID happened and all the kids were home from school using computers to access their education, and all of the employees were home from the office using their personal computers to access the information that they needed, it kind of came out that there are a lot of websites that are hard to access for people with disabilities. So there's been a much bigger push for your website to be compliant, ADA compliant, than there has been in the past year. There was a web content accessibility guideline created, and they listed these 3 levels. Level A is the most basic web accessibility features, and this is still new for me. So, like Jeffrey Neal Fox says, I don't know it all, but this is what I know about the ADA, is that when I showed you a little bit earlier in the thing, the photograph and how you alt text and descriptions and captions and those things in that first slide, that is what you can do that is in part what you can do to be in compliance with the ADA. And if you are, I think, and this is my own opinion, so also don't bank on this, but for right now, people like me and my website probably is not going to be as big of an issue as it is for colleges, universities, online learning, anybody that's funded by the government. Those kinds of places are really going to be being pushed to be way more accessible than they are. So for me, what I'm going to do in my company is to start documenting what I'm doing for ADA compliance. For example, if I'm going to upload a blog or 2 this month, I'm going to fill that whole section out, because that particular one that I used as an example, all of mine don't look like that. Not all of them have alt text. Not all of them have descriptions or any of that stuff. So what I'm going to do is, when I'm uploading a new blog, is to make sure that stuff is all filled out, and then maybe take the time to go fill out a different one or 2, time permitting. Go to a different page, and all of my pages, not just the blogs, it's the home page and it's all the photos on the whole site. So I might time block 30 minutes extra to just go in and do some of that. and I might record it on a spreadsheet that I'm doing what I can within my budget, because I don't have enough money, and I'm sure none of you do, to go out and hire somebody to make my website compliant right this minute. Plus, I don't even know what level of compliance I really need, right? So I'm going to document that I'm doing it just in case I get a letter from an attorney because somebody's pissed off because my site's not compliant. That may not come out wrong. But somebody's not able to access my site. So that's what I'm going to do for now until I learn more about ADA compliance. Does that make sense? So next, this is a checklist of all the things that you can ask yourself if you are concerned about your web accessibility. So if you want me to send this list to you, you can read through it really quickly here if you want, or I can email you a copy of it. Right now, I can't see you all right now, but maybe drop in the comments if you want me to send you a copy of this list. There's this much of it, in case you want me to send you this list. But you can go do an accessibility audit of your website. And I can tell you the place to go to get that too. So far, you can do a site audit on your entire website to check for the technical SEO issues. You can do the site speed audit to check the site speed, and you can do an accessibility audit to find out how your site complies. And I ran one on mine just to see, and if you can see there, it says 68 issues found. I've got a lot of pages, so I was really surprised that number wasn't any higher, just to be real honest. But it tells you what the issue is, and then I could click on the expand all issues button up there, and it tells me more specifically what this actually means. So that is an option too. There. The end. All right.
Hey, Gayle, I had a question for you.
Okay.
So you're saying that the photographs and everything like that, it takes up too much memory so that you have to, adjust them to load faster. Does that change the quality?
Sometimes. It depends on what kind of compression software you use, if any. So sometimes there is some give and take on quality. So depending on what the goal of your site is, then you have to make those decisions accordingly. I don't worry too much about it. I'm not going to put a 300 DPI photograph on my site. 72 is fine, but just use your best judgment and look at it. If it looks pixelated or disgusting, then that's going to take away from the user experience, and it might be better for you to have a little bit bigger picture and a little bit faster, a little bit slower load time to have some quality when people look at your site, because you do have a lot of images on your site with all the products that you have, right? Okay. Who else? Anybody? Is that too much stuff?
It's a
Yeah.
lot.
Hey, with blogging, how does blogging, I'm sorry if I'm interrupting somebody. How does blogging drive traffic to your website? Why is that? How does that work? And the recommended?
Blogging is a whole new page to your website. So every time you add a blog, you're adding a whole new page. So you're adding a whole new page to the search engines. And you can keyword that blog differently. And it's easy to share that content. You can, if you have a blog, you can copy and paste the URL into your Facebook and into your LinkedIn. And those things give you those little bumps in your user, in the social shares that help your user experience. Did that make sense? Did that answer your question? The blog content can
I
be,
think so.
the blog content is, it helps position you as an expert in the field, first of all. And second of all, it gives you some very good shareable content that you can share on your own social, or if you know somebody that you partner with. For example, let's say Josh Corbin wants to partner with a title company, for example, and he may guest blog, or he may share that person's content. He writes a blog about hurricanes and mortgages, and the title person goes and picks that up and uses it on their social media because it's relevant content for them. Then that gives him some credibility with Google too, also. And it gives him some domain authority if he's got that link back. But you got to get people to share your content. I mean, you can share your own content, but it's really good to have a network of people sharing your content, which is hard to find. It's hard to develop. That's not hard to find. It's hard to develop. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah, it takes time.
Yeah, like networking.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, it does. You start networking. You don't go to a networking meeting and everybody goes, "Hi, I want your stuff." You have to spend, you have to spend years, depending on what you do, developing relationships. And it's the same way with getting good quality content shared from somebody else's site on that domain authority stuff.
Yeah. Right.
What else?
Any other questions? I know we had some people that requested you to send information.
I see that over there. I stopped the share and I looked over in the chat.
Yes.
Okay.
There's a lot of good content.
It is a lot of content, and once I jumped into it, I thought, you know what? I think I bit off not more than I can chew. It's just each one of those could have been its own presentation. I am backing up. I've got something planned for the company for a little bit later on this month, but it's a little smaller. But yeah, that's a lot of information. I was going through it a couple of days ago, creating this whole thing, thinking, I think I'm going to bore the crap out of everybody.
Oh, I don't think it was boring. It's just, I think it takes time to let it all gel or whatever.
Yeah. It is a lot, Gayle, but what helped me listening to you was some of this stuff by working with you over the last couple of years and working with Corinne and Kristen and Kelly. I already have a lot of pieces of this in the right place, and I was like, oh, I'm doing it right, because I don't know if I'm doing things right or not, but I'm like, oh, hey, that's why Corinne did it that way. Okay, that makes sense. So now I just have little pieces to work on to make it better. So this was really helpful to me that way.
We started as a content marketing company. We weren't doing digital. We weren't doing that kind of stuff. And then over the years, it just made sense, first of all, to start to try to learn it. But it was such a big task, really, that it was little bits and pieces and little bits and pieces. And then COVID happened. Well, two things happened, actually. I had a new site built, and I used a person that I contract with to do my sites from this company. But when he got finished with the site, he didn't do any SEO. He just built the website. And I got mad. I was angry. I'd spent a lot of money on that website with this guy, and there was zero SEO in there until I started digging into it. When COVID happened, it gave me the opportunity to start learning a lot more. I had already a little, but when COVID happened, I started learning way more about SEO. And when I did that, I realized why he didn't do SEO. It's not the same. It's like you go to the dealership and you buy a car. You're buying a car. You're not buying the gas, the oil, the tires, the maintenance. You're buying the car. And it's not up to the dealership to provide you with any of that stuff once you drive off. But you know that. But it's the same exact thing with the website. You're buying a website. You're not buying SEO. You're not buying all the stuff that goes with it. All that stuff. You're not buying that. You're just buying the website. And so I learned a valuable lesson that it's now, and I didn't want to go out and talk about it until I knew more about it. So and I still don't know obviously everything there is to know, but I know a lot more about it now, enough to where I can go in and fix my own stuff now. So
That's good.
that's good.